Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
We'll begin our shloka reading with our respectful obeisances to the beautiful, worshipable, beautiful deities of ISKCON Sheshadripuram Jagannath Mandir, Shri Jagannath Mandir, ISKCON Sheshadripuram. Baldeva Prabhu ki jai, Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Lord Jagannatha ki jai, Lord Nitai ki jai, Panchatattva ki jai, Lord Parashurama ki jai, Lord Vamandev ki jai, Guru Parampara ki jai. We'll see our prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are in chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. Shloka we will be reading today is 14.20. Gunan netityatrin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukhe vimukto amritam ashnute. Translation: when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So here, Lord Shri Krishna is telling Arjuna, embodied being, that is living entity, and he's talking about transcending these three modes of material nature, which are associated with material body and not spiritual body. And what is the outcome? He's saying once he transcends, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and distresses related to it, which are miseries of this material life. And another result is he can enjoy a nectar even in this life. So let's see how what is happening, what has been discussed recently before this. So in chapter 14, what we have heard so far is that Lord Krishna explains the three modes of material nature here, which are controlling the activities of all living entities in this material world. Lord Krishna says, for example, in 14.5, Lord Krishna talks about material nature consists of three modes, which are those: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And these are related to material body, in material existence, in material world. So when the eternal, pure living entity comes in contact with this material nature, he becomes conditioned. So that's not his real nature, but he gets conditioned by these three modes. And under its control, what he does is he performs his activities based on his desires and permitted by his karma under these three influence of these three modes of material nature. So it's like the choices we make and the past karma. So this will be like a cyclic thing, because the past will be influenced to make choices which are similar to the past, the three modes of material nature, and then three modes of material nature will be incurring more karma, and so this will go on, and this is how things are. So that is why Lord Krishna is talking about transcending these three modes of material nature. So it is very important to understand how these three modes of material nature act upon a living entity. So in Bhagavad Gita, for our understanding, Lord Krishna gives the symptoms by which one can recognize these three modes in a person, in living entity. So he talks about all three. So the manifestations of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. So this is another symptom for mode of goodness, person in the mode of goodness. So he mentioned this in 14.1, 14.11. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. In 14.12, he talks about it. So when there is increase in mode of ignorance, darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested. So this is in 14.13. And Lord Krishna further explains that mode of goodness is purer than the other two modes of nature, that is passion and ignorance. So mode of goodness is better than these other two. Since in mode of goodness, one develops knowledge. This knowledge is very important. Spiritual knowledge, the perfect knowledge. So this will help us liberate us from the three modes. So, O sinless one, the mode of goodness being purer than the others is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So these are the symptoms. So all the mode of goodness is purer than the two. It is illuminating. One develops knowledge to free oneself from this material contamination, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. So, but still, being situated in this mode of goodness, one will get this sense of happiness and knowledge. And there is a danger that one might continue to linger on in this state for very long, and he'll be very content being in this mode. So we know that many people who take to altruism, these activities, Jan Kalyan, or to benefit the society, and if it's not Krishna conscious, they might go on making hospitals and other things, providing food, and they'll be content in this. But that is also the mode of goodness is also conditioning. It is not one is not liberated in as long as one is in the three modes of material nature, even in goodness. But goodness is better than the other two, and it helps us develop knowledge. And we need to transcend with the help of this. Transcend, because we here will be able to practice Krishna consciousness, devotional service, and transcend these three modes of material nature. So Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that mode of goodness is better than the other, because in mode of goodness, one is able to see all things in the right perspective, and hence it gives a chance to the person to develop devotion service to Godhead. And this is when things start getting better. So if one wants to develop this transcendental love for God, that is Krishna consciousness, and become eternally blissful in real happiness, spiritual happiness, one has to be situated in the mode of goodness and eventually transcend even this mode of goodness. Modes of passion and ignorance are not conducive for developing devotional service, and hence they should be avoided. So once we have this knowledge, we can make choices, we can judge ourselves, we can see who we associate with, we can see because we know the symptoms, and we can always ask questions. If we are serious about making progress, we can ask to our counselor or any spiritual leader when we go to temple or hear classes, discourses. We can make choices, who we associate with, what kind of choices we make, things like that. So we can be a judge of ourselves also, because once we have knowledge, for example, from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, we will see that who is who, or how we are acting, what we were doing earlier, have we made any progress, and where are we going, and what are the changes that have happened in us. We will be able to realize this. And so this is part of the spiritual realization. And we would want to take more and more things, or more activities, more and more things which are favorable for Krishna consciousness. And we will know that mode of goodness is better than the other two, and we will make choices related to mode of goodness. So sometimes the mode of goodness, so this is how it is, as explained by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, that these three modes of material nature are constantly competing with each other, and one is trying to gain supremacy over other, and this is how it is. So sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the other two modes, passion and ignorance, and sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. So this is how we go through when we this is how we would go through certain phases, and this would happen to us or everyone, all the devotees. So in this way, there is always competition for supremacy. So in this case, one has to be very firmly practice. In Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned. Srila Prabhupada has also made it compulsory. So we need to practice four regulative principles and chant the holy names, read Bhagavad Gita scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, associate with devotees, eat prasad. So these are the things which would help us make progress visiting temples. So we also know about Navvida Bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtan, Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam. If not all, at least we take one or two of these, and because we would enjoy at least one of these, and we would know this is very dear to us. So at least try to do that more for our purification. So this would cleanse the dirt from the mirror of the heart, which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talks about. In other words, to cleanse the effects of the mode of passion and ignorance from our past life, uh, in this life, past, or the past life from our previous birth. So this will help us remove the dirt from us, from our heart. And so this will help us remain situated in, at least constantly, in the mode of goodness. So in this age of Kali, chanting the holy names of the Lord is the recommended process, as mentioned in the scriptures. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talks about in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam Kalau Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Gatir Anyatha. So what this means, we have heard it many times. In this age of Kali, there is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way for self-realization than chanting the holy names of the Lord. And he says this 3 times to emphasize this importance, especially in this Kali Yuga. The holy name of Lord Hari is to be chanted. And mode of goodness, though conducive to attain devotional services, not our final goal, not our final target. We need to transcend even this mode of goodness. And that is when, once we transcend, the living entity will be liberated. Otherwise, as long as we are in the 3 modes, even in mode of goodness, we are better than the other 2, but still we are not liberated. And we know the symptoms, which we have heard in the previous shlokas. So the ultimate aim is to transcend all these 3 modes of material nature and be situated in our real constitutional position in the transcendence, as confirmed by Bhagavad Gita in this particular shloka 14.20. So when the embodied living being is able to transcend these 3 modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy an nectar even in this life, the spiritual happiness even in this life. If we know, we see our system, the way things are, our even the prevalent education system in colleges and schools, there is no emphasis on spiritual science. It is all about material science, what we learn, and which is part of material existence, and it will help us remain in this material existence if we don't get the spiritual knowledge, like for example Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So the current material system is imperfect, but the schools and colleges are teaching to excel in material science, but no emphasis on spiritual science. So we'll always be in that bondage. So we need to learn from Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Lord Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam, and all scriptures and all the books, for example, Srila Prabhupada has given. So we need to transcend these 3 modes of material nature and being spiritually happy, eternally happy, as recommended by the Lord. So the mode of goodness is the first step towards understanding God, Krishna consciousness, and so we can get this through association of the devotees, and when we go to temple or whosoever we hang out with the devotees. So we can discuss about Lord. So this is how it is. Otherwise, if we look at our prevalent material society, there is no opportunity to get out of this entanglement. For example, if you go out to a restaurant, there is no Krishna Prasadam. You go to cinema, there is no Krishna consciousness. YouTube, we might sometimes receive 1 or 2 videos and related to Krishna consciousness, and then we indulge in that, and after that we decide, oh, I've done a little too much for today, and then we might, okay, let me indulge in some material video, and this is how things are. So we remain in that entanglement. So this is how our society is, and we need to associate with devotees, read scriptures, eat prasadam, discuss about scriptures, have questions, ask our spiritual leader or guru or counselor, and free ourselves from the doubts and take progress in Krishna consciousness. So, so Srila Shukdev Goswami is talking about in Srimad Bhagavatam, he's telling Maharaja Parikshit, and one of the shlokas he talks about is that my dear king, about Kali Yuga, there is one which is an ocean of faults. There is still one good quality about this Kali Yuga, this age. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can become free from material bondage. and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. So this is what the emphasis is. And in summary, for example, if we drink water which is contaminated, we are bound to fall sick. Similarly, if we are influenced by the three modes of material nature, we are bound to experience the consequences which come with performing activities in the three modes of material nature, which are repeated birth within the material realm, material existence, disease, old age, and death. We cannot avoid this. So to free ourselves from these miseries, we need to transcend these modes of material nature and take to spiritual life. So these four are the primary miseries of material life. And spiritual Krishna consciousness is the solution. So if mode of passion and ignorance are symbolic of being in iron chains in the prison house of material existence, then mode of goodness, although better than the other two, can be equated to being chained in chains of gold. Chains of gold is better than iron, but still, being chained is an entanglement, being bonded, being in bondage, being experiencing entanglement in this material world. So our goal is beyond all these three modes, to get out of this prison house of material existence. So this is what Lord Krishna explains when we transcend the three modes, then Maya will no longer bind us, the living entity. So we can free ourselves from the miseries and practice Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, our real constitutional position, while even in this material body. But for that, we need to transcend, be at least in goodness, you get the spiritual knowledge, and then transcend even more of goodness. And then we can be liberated while we are here in this material world and be spiritually happy, Krishna conscious, in our real constitutional position. So this is how the soul get released from the cycle of life and death and attains freedom or immortality and be in our real constitutional position. So Hare Krishna Prabhuji Mataji, thanks for joining, thanks for hearing. We'll hear it tomorrow again further and the detail about how we can make progress as Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna. He's clearing his doubt. So thank you, Sri Hari Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji Mataji. Thanks for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.